Sometimes the truth is stranger than the fiction. Think about it for a second. How does someone completely vanish from the face of the earth without ever setting foot outside their own house? But honestly, that's not even the craziest part. What's truly unsettling is that the people desperately looking for him walked right past his resting place every single day. The police stood in that house, broken hearted relatives wept there, neighbors dropped by for casual chats. In fact, his wife and kids continued to live their everyday lives in that very house. Yet nobody noticed a thing. The missing person case of Surendra Kumar Sharma was a mystery that grew heavier with every ticking second. Everyone you talked to had a theory. Some thought he left the house in a fit of rage. Others feared a horrific accident. The police exhausted all their resources searching for him everywhere on the outside, but they were all making one fatal mistake. They weren't looking for him in the one place where he actually was. And you wouldn't believe what happened when the truth finally unraveled. 45 days later, it didn't just expose a murder, it revealed a calculated nightmare of planning, lies, and mind games that left even veteran homicide detectives frozen and shocked. Look, this isn't a movie plot. This is a real life horror story that took place inside a home in Agra, where the only thing more terrifying than the murder itself was the 45 days that followed. To understand how things got so dark, we have to look back to how it all started. This tragedy began roughly 16 years ago, around 2010, when Surendra Kumar Sharma, a quiet, soft spoken guy from Bharatpur, Rajasthan, married Ruby Sharma. To anyone looking from the outside, they were the picture perfect, happy family. Back then, Surendra was known as a gentle, simple, and deeply family oriented man. His father held a respected government position, which brought the family a lot of social dignity and a disciplined household. Ruby, coming from a modest middle class background, felt incredibly secure and happy in her new life. Within a few years, they welcomed two beautiful daughters, Riddhi, who is now 13, and Siddhi, who is 9. Surendra absolutely adored his little girls. His bond with Ruby seemed unshakable, and together they dreamed of a bright future. But then, out of nowhere, the family's anchor was pulled away. Surendra's father passed away suddenly. His death triggered a substantial government pension that began flowing into the family's bank account every month, a financial safety net left behind by a loving father. With the guiding hand of his father gone, and because Agra was barely a 2-hour drive from Bharatpur, the family made a life altering decision. Around 2017, nearly 9 years ago, Surendra, Ruby, and Surendra's elderly mother, Kamla Devi, packed up their lives and moved to Agra. They settled in the Dehotra area, building a brand new house in the Renuka Dham colony. Their intentions were so pure. They wanted their daughters to grow up in a big city, attend the best schools, and build a successful future. The house was built and the girls were safely enrolled in the school. From the outside, the dream was alive. But inside those walls, a dark, quiet poison was beginning to take root. You see, after moving to Agra, something shifted in Surendra. The drive to achieve just vanished. He never looked for work, he didn't start a business. Instead, he let unemployment swallow him whole, choosing to sit idle day after agonizing day. The entire household now relied heavily on his late father's pension, which was split equally between Surendra and his elder brother Anil Sharma. Now think about this. When guaranteed money lands in your lap without an ounce of effort, comfort can quickly turn into a curse. An idle man is a dangerous thing, and Surendra soon fell victim to a severe destructive alcohol addiction. What started as an occasional social drinking quickly spiraled into a relentless disease. He began waking up and immediately drowning his consciousness in alcohol. The real crisis hit when Surendra began burning through the pension money, funds meant for his daughter's futures and daily survival, just to feed his addiction. When his pockets ran dry, he would aggressively target Ruby for cash. Over the last 3 to 4 years, that dream home turned into a living hell. Whenever Ruby tried to save money for food or school fees and refused to hand it over, whatever love and humanity were left in Surendra would completely vanish. He would turn into a monster, brutally beating Ruby with sticks and kicking her without mercy. His drunken rage and Ruby's desperate screams became a horrific background noise for the neighborhood. Neighbors later told the police that violent shouting from the house had simply become a normal everyday occurrence. Ruby was simply completely broken, eroding from the inside out under the weight of continuous domestic violence. For years, she endured the blows, hoping against hope that her husband would change, that her family would survive, but eventually a threshold was crossed. And when a woman's fear is completely beaten out of her, something deeply dangerous takes its place. Ruby stopped crying and she started planning. By May 2026, Ruby's patience was utterly dead. She knew Surendra would never change. She realized if he stayed alive, he would either end her life or drag their daughters down into utter ruin. This was the catalyst for a murder plot so cold it defies imagination. Typically, people kill in a blind flash of rage and then frantically scramble to hide the evidence. But Ruby did the exact opposite. She built her escape route before she even committed the crime. While a dark plot brewed in her mind, her outward behavior was terrifyingly normal. She cooked, she cleaned, and she even quietly ordered sand and cement under the casual excuse of an upcoming bathroom renovation. She was just waiting for the perfect date. May 18, 2026. On that fateful day, Ruby sent her daughters Riddhi and Siddhi to stay with their uncle Anil. She also found a way to send Surendra's elderly mother out of the house. She needed the house empty. She needed Surendra entirely alone. With the stage set, Ruby put on her final performance of love. She cooked kheer, a sweet rice pudding that was Surendra's absolute favorite. To Surendra, it felt like the storms of the past few years had finally cleared. He sat down smiling, entirely unaware that Ruby had secretly crushed 15 to 16 heavy prescription sleeping pills into the milk. Surendra ate every single spoonful. Within minutes, the massive chemical dose took hold. His body began to shut down, his eyes were wide open, and his mind was fully conscious, but his muscles were completely paralyzed. He couldn't scream for help, he couldn't even lift a finger to defend himself. In that state of absolute waking helplessness, Ruby walked over to the bed, wrapped her hands around his throat, and choked the life out of him until his chest went completely still. And you wouldn't believe what happened after that. When the girls returned home that night, they saw their father lying motionless on the bed. They think twice about it. For years, they had grown up seeing their father pass out cold from alcohol. They assumed he was just sleeping off another binge, never imagining that their father was actually dead. The next morning, May 19, Ruby sent the children away once more, and with that, Surendra vanished from the face of the earth. This is where the story shifts from a tragedy into a psychological horror. Days bled into weeks. A full week after the murder, on May 26, Surendra's brother Anil became deeply panicked by his brother's prolonged absence. Seizing the opportunity to play the victim, Ruby went with Anil to the Sikandra police station to file a missing person report. She wept before the officers, shedding calculated tears. She put on such a devastating display of grief and anxiety that everyone truly believed no one loved or missed Surendra more than his grieving wife. Whenever neighbors asked where he was, Ruby would offer a calm, reassuring smile and say, "Oh, we had a little argument and he left in a huff. He'll be back soon." But criminal history proves that absolute perfection is an illusion. Ruby made one crucial mistake, and in a poetic twist of justice, the truth about Surendra's death was brought to light by his late father. The bank account holding the father's pension required the signatures and cards of both brothers. Even though Surendra was supposedly missing and his phone was dead, Anil noticed something bizarre on the monthly statements. Regular weekly cash withdrawals were still happening from the pension account. Anil's mind raced. How could a missing man, completely unreachable, be quietly slipping into ATMs across Agra every single week to withdraw cash? Anil instantly realized that the ATM card was in Ruby's possession and that she was sitting on a massive dark secret. He quietly took his suspicions to the police. The day of reckoning arrived on July 3, 2026. A team from the Sikandar police station dropped by the house for a routine, unrelated background check. Seeing the police unexpectedly standing on her porch, Ruby's flawless mask slipped for the very first time. Panic seized her in a desperate bid to control the situation. She phoned her brother in law Anil, begging him to come over and help talk to the officers, but Anil wasn't there to save her. He was there to trap her. The moment he stepped through the door, he laid it all bare before the detectives. Sir, I don't trust this woman. My brother is missing, yet his ATM card is being used constantly right under our noses. She is the only one who has access to it. With the atmosphere growing thick with suspicion, the police began a systematic search of the house, moving from room to room, and you wouldn't believe what happened next. The moment an officer stepped into the bathroom, his eyes tracked down to the floor. The walls and the surrounding tiles were weathered, stained, and old, but one specific patch of the floor was pristine. Brand new tiles had been laid, and the concrete securing them looked fresh, not yet fully worn by time. The police immediately took Ruby into custody. At the station, she tried to spin a web of misdirection, but when investigators tightened the screws, presenting her with the undeniable timeline of the ATM withdrawals, her 45-day fortress of lies crumbled. She broke down into tears and confessed everything. At midnight on July 4th, the quiet neighborhood was awash with flashing police lights, homicide detectives, forensic specialists, and laborers armed with sledgehammers fled into the house. The hammers struck the pristine tiles, fracturing the concrete. They dug deep into the earth beneath, and from the dark soil, they unearthed the heavily decomposed remains of Surendra Kumar Sharma. The full scope of the horror finally came to light. Weeks prior, Ruby had casually walked up to a local mason in Dehotra, hiring him under the guise of a routine home improvement project. She paid him a cash advance and had the sand and cement delivered early, ensuring that when the construction work began, the neighbors wouldn't think twice about the noise. The night she strangled Surendra, she didn't panic. She dragged his lifeless, heavy body from the bedroom into the bathroom. Using a spade and a trowel, she manually dug a deep, grave-sized trench into the bathroom floor herself. She rolled his body into the pit, packed the earth back over him, and seamlessly called the mason the very next day. The laborers came in, poured a thick, heavy layer of concrete over the makeshift grave, and laid the beautiful new tiles right on the top. No one had any idea that 3 feet below where they stood to wash their hands, a man had been sealed in a concrete tomb. For 45 days, Ruby managed to deceive her family, her suspicious brother in law, her neighbors, and even the law. It makes you wonder, if she had just left that ATM card unlocked, would this murder have remained buried forever? The police are currently investigating whether Ruby had an accomplice, though she adamantly claims she carried out the execution and burial entirely on her own. But what do you think? Could a person pull off a crime this dark and calculated completely alone? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If this deep dive into real life horror kept you on the edge of your seat, please give this video a like, share it with your friends, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you in the next case. Until then, stay observant and stay strong.